Hey, welcome to the Knitpicks podcast. This is Lee. I'm the Knitpicks books and patterns graphic designer. And as usual, I'm here with my friend Stacey.
Hi, I'm Stacey. I am the content IP and outreach director. Mainly I work with the collections and pretty much outside folk. So I do lots of weird things. But I say that every week. One day, maybe I'll get a different thing down. So how you been?
Pretty good. It's that transition time where you're cold one day, hot the next day, back and forth. It's June. There's a joke in Portland that the summer starts like July 5th. Because always like 4th of July, you never know if it's actually going to feel like summer yet or not. So June is like very up and down. And of course, this year we've been having way more hardcore heat waves all throughout May and June than more so than usual. But then it like gets cold in between the heat waves, so it's all over the place. I feel like I'm dressing different every day.
I'm wearing wool socks right now, which I haven't worn for a while because it's quite chilly today. So January, yay!
Yep.
But what have you been up to? I know one thing you've been up to because I follow your Instagram.
Yeah, this is the time of year when, well, the last 2 years anyway, I get very, very obsessed with gardening. So gardening is kind of my main activity outside of work these days. I built a new raised bed last weekend. I decided I needed more space, even though I think I probably have plenty of space already. But I still had more ground area that didn't have anything on it, so I built a new raised bed.
Nice.
And I put all my kale in it. I'm growing like 10 different kinds of tomatoes, like 4 different kinds of peppers, which I'm excited about the peppers this year. Tons of stuff. Yeah.
I'm excited. I really want to do gardening, but I always get really excited about gardening at this time of year, and then I just have a black thumb. I just kill everything. In fact, for my birthday a few weeks ago, my mom felt sorry for me and gave me a cactus. So now I have a cactus to try to keep alive. So we'll see if that'll happen.
Cactus are not the easiest thing.
No.
A lot of people like get a cactus because they think it's the easiest and then kill it. And they're like, oh, I can't keep anything alive. But actually, that's like one of the harder things to keep alive. So.
Yes.
Well,
I have to jump in on the plant talk. This is producer Andi, who is a plant hoarder, maybe we would say. Cactuses in the Pacific Northwest are so hard because it's so damp and not enough sunlight. And like people think they're going to be easy, but they get too much moisture, then they mold and die.
Yeah.
Sorry, thanks, guys. I'm going to kill my cactus now.
Well, we're just telling you, you got something hard to care for. You gotta go for like the tropical plants that like the damp.
Yeah. And I will say, with regards to your black thumb thing, I for years like would try to grow things just like by sticking them in a pot that like came with my house, and they wouldn't do very well. And then basically I just got really sucked into gardening YouTube and just watched tons and tons of videos, and I learned. I actually learned that you can learn. Like learning is cool. I was like, these are all the reasons why I wasn't able to grow things because I didn't know what I was doing. And so it's more about just learning and how to do it. And I don't think anyone is born with a green thumb or a black thumb. It's just it's like if you've never drawn a picture before and then you try to draw a picture, you're probably gonna draw a pretty bad picture because you've never done it before. So anyone out there who thinks they maybe moved into a new house or something, YouTube, I highly recommend. Very helpful for me.
You can also find a lot of good info on Instagram, just like with knitting. All the same places you find good knitting info, you can find good plant. I don't know what the
knowledge. Sharing.
Yes, like that's how I picked up a lot of what I know. Is like I started following people who live in the Pacific Northwest, and they're like, "We have light issues. All of our plants are sad," and I'm like, "Oh, it's not me. I have the wrong plants."
Yeah,
Just to let you guys know, I am aware that I could be better at taking care of plants. I just choose not to.
It's totally a personal interest. Like I basically had no interest in really doing it like for real, like until last year. And all of a sudden last year for whatever reason, I was like, you know what? I want to grow food. And I just dove headfirst into it. And before that, it wasn't something I was into. So
yeah,
I did the same thing with sewing, and I'd latch onto something. Yeah.
I do grow like herbs and stuff because I like to cook with them. So, and not buying like a huge package of herbs that are going to go bad after a while. So I grow my herbs now. But anyway, I was kind of more joking about the black thumb. But
I just wanted to share my love for YouTube gardening content, basically.
You made the mistake about joking about black thumb with 2 plant nerds.
Yeah. Anyway,
maybe our listeners might want more crafty content. What have you been up to craft-wise lately?
Well, you're not going to get craft-wise from me because I have been working on our knit-along project, which we will definitely be talking about in our later segment. I mean, otherwise, that's all I've been doing. I was on vacation for a couple of weeks, so I knit a lot on that and on the Felici socks that I usually just work on when I'm doing the podcast because I have a tendency to fidget a lot and make Andi mad. So I work on these socks. But I was working on them a little bit when I was on vacation. But yeah, that's all knitting wise. And then I've sewn a little bit. But I made something I like last few things I made I'm not super happy with. So I'm just like, maybe I need a break from sewing, but I want new clothes, but I hate shopping. So maybe I should find new sewing patterns. I don't know. I'm just like, I'm in that kind of weird state. I've been reading a lot. So I got my, one of my best friends and I started our 2-person book club. So we are reading book just basically so we can just talk about books with each other. And it generally is us just going out and getting a drink without our significant others and talking about the books for about 5 minutes and then just, gossiping the rest of the time. So as I know, I understand is how book groups work anyway, but I have been reading a lot. So, and it's been fun. So
fun. Well, I've been on a sewing slump for the last year and a half, as I think I've talked about a couple times. I keep wanting to get back into it and just kind of not taking the step to pick out what I'm going to do and actually do it. And part of it is my sewing room studio is a mess and it's just kind of unpleasant to move things around to make room. And so I need to spend a weekend cleaning it up and then maybe I'll be more excited to use it. And so I definitely, as the temperatures have been changing though, and I'm thinking more about summer wardrobes, I'm thinking I want to sew some skirts and some shorts and some summer things. But I did finish a knitting project recently though, so I can talk about that.
You did?
Yeah, I did a gift.
Who would have thought we're a knitting podcast and you finished a knitting project?
Yeah. So it was a garment, but it was a baby garment because it was for a baby shower for a gift for a friend. So it was from the Knit One, Knit All Elizabeth Zimmerman's Garter Stitch Designs book.
Ooh.
And it was a
going old school
garter stitch 2-piece baby jacket. And I wanted to do the famous baby surprise jacket because that one I've always wanted to knit because the construction looks so cool, but it has to be in fingering gauge. And I was like, I know it's a baby size, but it's still I'm not going to knit a whole baby sweater in fingering gauge. I know I can't finish it in time. So I found in the book, there's the 2-piece baby jacket pattern, which is more of a stockinette gauge. So that was more up my alley, more manageable. So I did swish yarn, but held double. No, sorry, not swish, stroll. Stroll sock yarn, held double to be a worsted gauge. And it's all garter stitch. So it's very squishy, very soft. That stroll yarn, garter stitch, held double is a great fabric. I love it. I would totally knit myself a garment in that same fabric. And I used a combination of different old Sock Lab colorways from when we used to do the Sock Labs.
Oh,
and it was that the CMYK series, the month that we had basically, yeah, we had CMY, so cyan, magenta, yellow, and black or white, or depending on what the base is, on a black base, on a white base, on a gray base. So I did kind of like color blocks of those with a couple solids in between. So I would do one of those in a solid. And yeah, and it's a very like color block friendly pattern because of the construction. Of course, because Elizabeth Zimmerman, it's like a very clever construction where you're knitting from the sleeve up to the center of the body on one half, and they do the same thing on the other half, sleeve the center of the body, and then you graft it up the back, and then just do like an I-cord bind off just all the way around the whole edging of it for a nice clean edge. It's like very satisfying, and I really like how it turned out. So yay.
Nice. Yay. I bet the mom was very happy with the gift.
Yeah, I hope so. I the whole like fit thing. I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna fit. I don't know baby sizes. I'm hoping it's a good size where like if the baby's born in the summer and then it outgrows it immediately by the time it gets cold, like I'm nervous about that whole thing. But I figure it's a kind of garment that can be passed along. It can be regifted over and over, hopefully. So lots of different babies could wear it over the years. So
I think so.
I hope so.
Awesome. So actually coming up soon, we're going to be taking a break. I know this is kind of a surprise. We're actually taking a break and like announcing we're taking a break instead of like disappearing off your feeds for a few months. But this time we're actually taking a summer break. We had planned this for a while. We just want to kind of recharge, and we got a lot going on in the background. So this just seemed like a good time to take a break. So and I got a whole bunch of yarn yesterday, which I probably don't need, but I'm going to plan on doing some fall projects. And maybe by the time I get back, I'll actually finish a project. Who knows? What are you going to do?
I'm going to be designing. I'm going to be designing more free patterns to go with some yarns coming out, and actually a couple patterns for kind of collection, or one pattern for collection. Anyway, I'm excited to be working on that. The releases of them all are going to be all over the place. So just coming up throughout the rest of the year, you'll be seeing more patterns come out from me, which is something I love doing. So I'm very excited to be working on that. Also, we wanted to kind of remind you that podcast episodes will be going up on our YouTube channel. And so, while we're not going to be showing up in your podcast feed, you will be seeing kind of old episodes being re-released on YouTube. And something that's really cool about that is because it's YouTube, it is audio only. It's just the audio podcast, but there's going to be captions. Or there are. A lot of them are up already. But there are captions, and we're kind of working on making sure that they're like accurate, which is kind of a learning curve that we're, so they may not be perfect yet, but we're working on that. But it's cool. So if you know somebody who's like interested in what we talk about on the podcast, but maybe listening isn't their preferred method of consuming information, they can watch the YouTube video and read the captions of what we're talking about. So we're excited to have that as an option. Yeah,
I have a tendency to turn on YouTube especially when I'm working. I have it on my, especially when I'm working from home, I have it on a different computer, and I just kind of have it going in the background. So it's like another way to listen to the podcast if you have a tendency, because I know a lot of people just use YouTube to consume, media like that. So I think it's cool. If you haven't been to our YouTube channel, you should come check it out. We've got some great new stuff. Nick, our new marketing manager, well, he's not that new anymore. He's been there for a few months, but he has a YouTube background. And so he's been putting up a lot of videos and shorts and fun stuff, polls. He was putting up polls earlier this week, and I think it's really fun. And so, he's been, he came up with the idea of putting some of the archived or, the older episodes up just to kind of, if that's the way you want to listen to it. So you could listen to some super old one. Probably not that old.
I think we're going like backward order. Yeah. So they're going to be like pretty recent now, but then as time goes on, they'll get older and older. So maybe there'll be ones that you haven't heard yet going up there.
And then
it'll just be a silly picture of us. If you have any ideas for like visual, I mean, we don't have the capacity right now to like record video. So we have no plans to make it like a video podcast, but like if you have an idea for like a picture that you want us to put up as a still picture to go with the video, I don't know. I'm kind of brainstorming a little bit about that, about ideas that we might do in the future.
Instead of looking at our silly little photo shoot where we were pretending we were on NPR, and it was fun stuff. But you can go back and listen to these old ones and then hold us accountable for all these projects that especially me, that I say I start and haven't finished yet. So
yeah. And then, so we'll be back in your actual podcast feeds with brand new episodes starting the first Wednesday in September. So we'll just kind of be out for the summer. And then as soon as the weather starts hinting towards fall and you start picking up your needles, if you're someone who puts them down for the summer, which none of us are, we'll be holding our needles the whole time. But yeah, as soon as you feel that chill in the air, go back to our podcast and we'll be back with new episodes. Yeah.
And we might have a lost episode coming out in July. We had an episode that it never made it to the feed. It was a fun one. It never made it to the feed. So we thought that would be a fun time to, release it. So I won't give any hints about what it's about, but keep on the feed. Yeah. Don't unsubscribe. Keep listening. We'll still be here.
Also, don't forget to be checking in with us on Instagram and Facebook. We'll be doing that knit along, which you're hearing about in this episode. And of course, posting lots of stuff on social media. So we're still around. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Lee and I are not going anywhere. We're just taking a break. So I'm sure we'll be around. So next we have some new stuff that is on the site now. We have a new collection that I'm pretty excited about. It's our annual lace collection. June, July, it's always a great time to knit lace because it is if you're using lace weight yarn or fingering weight yarn, it's a great way. It's very light. It's very airy. It's a good summer knitting project. I mean, my preferred is socks, but lace is also a great one. So this one is a smaller collection. It's a 6 pattern collection. All of them use fingering weight and lace weight yarn. Luxury yarns, I would say. And it is very pretty. I was very happy how it came out. We were inspired by gardens, going back to the plant talk we were having earlier. So these are kind of English gardens, like beautiful flowers and iron wrought fences and things like that. Actually, a funny thing behind the scenes of the photo shoot, I was really obsessed with this iron wrought bench that I really wanted some shots on. But Hillary and the photographer talked me out of it because it was in a very inaccessible place and it was kind of broken down. But I was very sad because I was like, oh, I really want a really pretty one. It's like, that's perfect. And they're like, yeah, it's not going to work. So it'll probably look like it would probably have looked like it came from the junkyard or something. So, but yeah, so yep, it's very pretty.
I don't know if we said the name of the collection. It's Botanic.
Oh, I did not. Yes.
Nature Inspired Lace is the subtitle. And it is in print. So
yes.
You might have noticed not all of our collections are in print these days. It's kind of like a few a year. So this one is in print and it is a smaller book. It's only 6 patterns. So it's kind of a smaller print book. But you'll have all the charts all nice and printed out. If that's what you want. And also, of course, ebook and individual patterns as usual. All of the lace patterns are written out and they're all charted except for one. One of them is only written out because of the way the shaping works. It just doesn't make sense to chart it. But
that's if the Ascend we try to right? Ascend.
Yeah, Ascend.
Yeah, the big large. It's a really large circular shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and because it all has lots of shaping throughout the whole thing. Yeah. So we do try to make our lace patterns as accessible as possible by having them both charted and written, so you can use whichever you prefer.
Yeah.
And they're all kind of different shapes and different styles. It's a nice variety.
Yeah, my favorite is the cover one. It's the Blotsama Stole by Susanna Ice. It's in a loft and it is in a gradient, 4 gradient colors. It's so pretty. I remember picking out the colors, trying to figure out which color story to go with. There was one that was like a super neutral one and some, a brighter one, but we settled on the pink and I think it looks really beautiful. And Susanna Ice, if you're familiar, she is a very popular lace designer. So I'm always happy to work with her because she's wonderful. I think I've been working with her for about 12, 13 years now, like in collections and in IDP. Yeah, she has a wonderful eye for lace. So I was really happy to work with her again. So
Nice.
Yeah, that one's my favorite. Yeah. So there's some, I mean, everything in it is beautiful. So, and like I said, some of them are in fingering weight. So we have the Lyra and Bloom shawl, which is more of a triangle shape, but it's got a really interesting construction.
Yeah, that was cool.
I did not understand it when I was looking at it.
Can I explain it? I love explaining construction. Yes. So it starts with a center medallion, which is knit in the round, but it's like if you were knitting a hat top down. So it starts with like the point of the round and then it increases out. So it's flat, but it's knit in the round, or like a dishcloth or something, of something flat that you start in the center. So it increases out now in the lace pattern, of course, into like a square, but then the square is kind of on the diagonal. So it's like a diamond. I mean, it's like a square turned on its side, right? And then the top two square edges are then knit out into the triangle shawl, like it decreased out in a very long triangle. So then the square with the top two edges forms its own kind of triangle shape. And then the edging is knit from along the bottoms of those new triangles and along the bottoms of the square. So it's a triangle shawl, but it's knit in a very interesting way that is really fun. I had a fun time kind of style editing it and like knitting it in my brain and trying to wrap my head around it, and then like drawing the schematic. Like, okay, I got it. It's cool.
I remember coming up to you and like, because I was reading over the pattern, I'm like, Lee, I just don't understand this pattern. I don't get it.
You're like, it says it's knit in the round, but it's not. It's not a round. It's not. Yeah, that was what was confusing to me too. I was like, how are the charts both flat and in the round? I don't understand. Okay, I got it. Yeah, took me a while.
Yeah, it's definitely a construction I'd never seen before. So, it's a beautiful project. I really love that one. That's the one in Capretta too. It's in a fingering weight, so it's not quite. If you are not necessarily new to lace, but are want to expand your lace, this is a good one because it's not in like a really thin, slippery lace yarn like Luminance. It's in Capretta, so it's a good one to use. So, and it's so beautiful, man. Reblocking all of these, we usually get the samples in not a long time, but several weeks before we actually do the photos. And when they're in the mail, they can get crumpled or folded wrong. So I usually reblock them so they're all like beautiful and steamed and everything. And that one just looked so beautiful. I was just I was blown away by it. So, but yeah. And then we mentioned Ascend earlier. That's the crescent shaped one that doesn't have the charts, but it is really large and really cozy, and it's an elixir. So it's a really interesting one because elixir has such interesting colors. With that black thread in there. It looks really cool. So, yeah. And then there's Solstice, which is a circular shawl that's in Voliere. And it's like, it's a circular shawl, and it has a really wide neck and it fits like, I don't know, to me, it looked like a poncho, but I'm sure there's like a more beautiful word for it
well, it's like a circular shawl, but with a hole in the middle. Like it doesn't go all the way to the middle. So it's like a donut shawl. Yeah. that's a technical term, right? Donut shawl.
But yeah, and it looks really pretty too. I like that one. And Voliere is a really nice yarn to use for those kind of projects. So yeah, it's beautiful. Like Lee said, you can get it in book form, in ebook form, or single pattern. So check it out. And we have some other new stuff on the site as well. One that I am so excited about. We have Sunstruck in Foursquare. Yay! It's like a marriage of my two favorite needles because I love Sunstruck, but I have a tendency to use our Majestic Foursquares because I love the Foursquares, and now we have them in Sunstruck. I'm very excited. Yeah, I got to use them to test them, quote unquote, for many of my projects for the last few weeks, and I am just very excited about them. So if you want to try a Foursquare and you think the Majestics are too dark, which I can understand. It is really difficult to knit with on like really dark yarn. Sunstruck is such a great neutral because it works with every kind of yarn. You should definitely check them out. And then one thing that I'm very excited about is something I've been asking for years is I like our DPNs. I still use DPNs, double pointed needles. But I don't like how long our double pointed needles are when the sizes above from 4 and above, they're 8 inches and they're just a little long for doing things like gloves, like fingers, or even tops of hats. I find them just very long. I still use them, but now if you are like me and still use DPNs and still think that ours are a little long, we will now have 6-inch deep double pointed needles in Sunstruck, in Foursquare, and in regular round needles. So that is something I have been very excited about, and it's when I got them, I was so excited. I was like immediately putting them on the hat I was knitting, and I was just, I don't know, I'm just very excited. I know not a lot of people use double pointed needles, or at least the people on this podcast, but I still use them. As I mentioned, I use them for heels of socks and things like that.
Well, that is exciting. Those are all needles I don't have a lot of personal experience using, but
should.
I have used the Foursquares a few times, and I did like them. So I do want to kind of get more into the Foursquares. And I use double pointed needles once in a while, and I do agree that having shorter ones is nice and convenient, less fiddly. So I think these are all great things. Yeah, and yeah, like we said, we're going to be off for a while from the podcast, so we won't be able to tell you all the new things that come out during our time off. So be sure to check in with our website to see other new stuff that's coming. And we'll be back in a minute to talk with a bunch of people about our knit along that we're all doing, our Ice Fire knit along. We're going to have a roundtable discussion with several of our favorite coworkers. All of our coworkers are our favorite.
Yeah.
Everyone is great here. So we're all going to share with you our progress and our hacks and tricks and all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. Yay. And we're back. We are back, and we are chatting with 3 of our coworkers who are also participating in our Ice Fire knit along. It started June 1st, and we are about 3 weeks in. So we wanted to check in with people to see what they're doing, how far they are, if there's anything that's cropped up that's been a problem. So let's go around and introduce ourselves. Carlene, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Sure.
Carlene, tell us who you are.
My name is Carlene, and I'm the Amazon Sales Channel Coordinator, which basically means I run our Amazon store.
That's awesome. Okay, and then we've got Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen, and I am the content outreach person for We Crochet.
And Regan.
Hi, I'm Regan. I'm one of the designers for knitpicks, and I do like email design and sale graphics.
Awesome. And we also have Andi lurking in the background, so she might jump in a second too. But and then of course Lee is also here. So how is everyone going on the Ice Fire wrap? Regan, I bet you have a story for us.
I was hoping that I wouldn't go first, but I can start.
We're just gonna call you out now.
Yeah. I might be done. I might be done with my wrap.
You might.
I am done with my wrap.
What yarn did you use again?
I used wool of the Andes, so I did not do the gradation situation of the chroma yarn. I kind of went with a more like color block gradient sort of thing. I don't know how I should describe that as, but you used
you used more than one color or more than 2 colors. So
yeah. I used 5 colors, 6 colors. I don't remember. And they go from a range of kind of like a lighter to a darker color. So I say gradient, but it's not really gradient. But I just alternated the light and dark the entire way through.
Nice. It's really beautiful. You'll probably see in progress pictures. Actually, I know you will because Regan's been taking them because he takes my wrap every week to take pictures
every
of
Tuesday.
it. Yes. It's like, did you bring your wrap?
If you go to our Instagram or Facebook and kind of scroll through or go through story highlights, you'll see pictures of everything we're talking about. So you can look at that as we're talking and kind of see a visual reference. Yeah.
And Carlene, this was the first time you have done short rows. How have you been finding it?
I didn't think it was as hard as it would be.
I told you.
It's just going back and forth in little short rows. So it's really not that hard. And it's going a lot faster than I thought. I actually took a scarf I already owned that I liked the length of, and I measured it, and I'm a bit more than halfway done with my wrap so far.
Ooh. Nice. Just a little bit behind the scenes. Carlene was nervous about it when we were talking about the getting people to sign up for the knit along. Because she said she had never done short rows before. But me and Lee and Andi all convinced her that it was easy. And it is. Listener, if you've not done short rows, they are not difficult. So you can do it. And you're using chroma, right?
Yeah, I'm using a solid color, gray, and also one of the color changing ones, Pegasus, which is like blue and green and purpley, pinky colors.
Cool. It's so pretty. I like that one too.
Thank you.
And then Jen, how are you doing?
I par for the course with the knit along with me. I have already ripped back twice. Because
we all
just
have.
How I do it. So I've actually I'm enjoying the pattern. I find it's pretty intuitive and easy to follow. The only problem that I ran into is myself. I thought I knew where the short row started, and I might have made a mistake on when the pattern repeats itself, and I didn't go far enough over, so I had to rip back 2 short row sections. But it wasn't that big of a deal. And I'm knitting backwards on my short rows, or purling backwards, I guess it would be, on my short rows, so that I don't have to keep turning, because I hate the turning.
Oh, interesting.
That's a clever hack. I'm one of those people, like, I've tried teaching myself that technique, and it's just been like, I felt like it was slower than just turning. Like I couldn't get the movement right or something. But it seems like if that clicks with you, that's a good hack.
Yeah, because it's so few stitches. And I also think that if I was so full disclosure, because I'm going to out myself on everything, I'm not picking up my wraps when I turn and knit back, because they're hidden in the garter. So I think if I was having to pick up the wraps, I would probably be turning, just because it's harder to pick them up when you're going the wrong direction. But because I'm not doing that, I'm just knitting back and forth. It's very easy. I'm loving it.
Nice. Clever.
Awesome. Wow, so many hacks. And Lee, how are you doing? You're doing it completely different than the rest of us.
So I'm doing this sweater hack, which I've talked about a little bit in previous episodes, so I won't go into too much detail. But I'm let's see, about 2/3 of the way through the second panel of the sweater. So I'm getting pretty close to finishing that second panel, and then I'll have the 2 panels done, and then I'll figure out kind of my neckline shoulder join situation and do that. And then I just plan on picking up stitches for the sleeves and just knitting stockinette sleeves. It should go pretty
you're not going
quickly.
to keep the design down the sleeves?
I've thought about it. I don't think I'm going to. I think I'm just going to do stockinette sleeves, just because I don't love garter stitch sleeves, because they're a bit like bulkier.
Mm-hmm.
I might change my mind though. We'll see.
I love it. And I'm pretty close to being done. I have another section to go, and I'm actually thinking about ending it a little bit early because it is a really large wrap. But as we're outing ourselves, I did, even though I was like, I don't mind counting between the short row sections on the last podcast, I am using Lee's little hack of that's also in the pattern, of placing stitch markers and moving them every time after you complete one of the short row sections, moving them over 5 or back 5. So I don't have to count between, because honestly I kept losing count, and there's a couple of spots in there where the little flames are in like a weird spot, but I don't care. It's my wrap. I'm going to just use it when like wrap up in the cold winter months. And Andi, do you want to share where you are?
Sure. I am about 3 repeats in, and I shared this over on the knitpicks blog. If you visit, blog.knitpicks.com, I've been sharing sort of resources and the general schedule to stick to for the knit along. And I figured out that it's about 8 weeks long, and there are 8 big repeats within the pattern. So if you do 1 a week, you'll be on track to finish on time. And I have done 3 repeats.
Good job.
So I'm doing great. Except I think I might make mine shorter too, because mine's going to be more like a scarf, and it's a very long wrap the way it's written.
Yeah. Which I don't mind as much, but you're also using a different yarn, right?
Yes, I'm using Capra DK in 2 colors. So mine's narrower and more scarfy. Yeah. My ideal scarf length is like my wingspan, like fingertip to fingertip, which I'm like about halfway there. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go and make it just like a big dramatic scarf and do the full length, or just call it a day after I get 6 repeats done. I'm still debating. We're all kind of making the pattern our own.
Yeah.
Like, are any of us knitting it exactly as written?
I don't think so. Not exactly.
I am sort of, unless I decide to not do the last repeat. But I was showing it to Lee yesterday in the office, and I held it up, and I'm like, it's taller than me already. So
it's so long, yeah.
But yeah, otherwise I think I'm pretty much following it. I mean, because I'm using the same yarn, and I'm on track to do the same way, but we'll see. I'm almost done with the second to last repeat, and then I'll kind of decide then if I want to just chop off one of the repeats. So it's been really fun. It's one of those ones that I find myself knitting knitting a lot, because I was on a vacation, so I got a lot done. That's why I'm like pretty far ahead. But I'm pretty far ahead, other than Regan, who is finished. But I cannot compare myself to him. But I have a tendency, I don't know if you guys have found this, when I'm knitting, like watching TV or, in a meeting or whatever, I have a tendency to forget where the short rows are, because I'm just like happily just knitting my garter stitch and changing colors every row. But just kind of, I've had to rip back so many times because I've missed a row with the short row section. So
usually, my thing is like I do the first one, and then I'm working to the short row at the end, and I just am like, I already did my short rows, and I just like power through, and then I'm like halfway across the next row, and then I realize, oh, there's 2 sets of the flame motif, not just one.
I was just thinking, like, a pretty easy hack if you wanted just a less giant project. If you use the given yarn and gauge, but only did 1 pattern repeat instead of 2, like I'm looking at mine right now, I'm like, that would be a pretty good standard scarf width if you just wanted it to be a scarf instead of like a stole. Just do 1 repeat, and you don't have to worry about forgetting that second flame because there's only 1. I don't think anybody's doing that hack.
I kind of am like tempted to, just because I would probably wear it more as like a normal scarf, like in the winter. But I'm really excited about my big giant wrap, so maybe I'll do like a Lenny Kravitz all wrapped up, like when it gets really cold out again, and just like that big giant scarf.
Yeah.
It's great for dramatic pictures, which Regan might have already taken some.
Really? Oh, yes, I did see those.
They might be a thing already.
But I'm excited to just use it, just sitting it on my couch in the winter and just wrapped up. Usually I use my Hue Shift blanket, but maybe my Ice Fire wrap will be my new wrap up on the couch and watch TV, drinking tea, and knitting other stuff.
Jen, I know you were thinking about doing a modification. Did you decide to stick with it, or like?
So I was going to do the sweater, and then I realized it wasn't wide enough to fit as a sweater, even the two pieces. And so then I was going to have to do math to figure out if I was going to put garter on the sides. And then it became a thing. And then you guys pointed out that I sometimes do too many different things, and maybe I should just follow a pattern. So I mostly followed the pattern down to the 2-color rib that is, what do you call it, where you're actually stranding it. So I did that bit even. Yeah, I'm mostly following the pattern, except I'm not picking up my wraps.
Do you think you'll go full length?
Well, we'll have to see, because I'm shorter than Stacey, and I'm thinking if Stacey's is already taller than her and she's not finished the full thing, probably not, except I'm thinking I'm going to leave mine at the office as a blanket because I'm always freezing. So maybe longer is better. I can wrap up in it like a mummy.
That's what I'm planning on doing. So, has anyone else having any issues or any problems you've run into? Carlene, you had any?
No, I'm just being really careful to follow the pattern exactly. So like I thought about doing the thing of the stitch markers where I mark where the repeats are, but that was too confusing for me. So I printed out the pattern like multiple times, and I just highlight when I do a line, and I'm going down the lines and switching pages as I get through a repeat and etc. It's very tedious.
That's what I was doing. I have, instead of marking off lines, I have a row counter that I've been, when I remember to actually move it to the right thing. But I'm in the general area, and then I just started using the stitch markers, and then I stopped. So, but I was using the printout of my, the pattern myself in my bag, and I kept losing it, and I'm just like, well, I'll just guess on that. I think I know where I am.
Yeah, my printout's getting a little tattered, and I keep stapling new pages onto it, and it's going to be a souvenir for sure.
Need to get you a row counter.
Yeah, I was looking at them. I was thinking maybe I should spring for one.
I have so many of them, and I keep putting them on because I have way too many projects going, and I have to liberate it from a different project when I want to use it. So, I mean, because why would I finish a project?
Who does that?
Who does that?
Only Regan.
Yeah, only Regan.
Regan.
Crazy. I want to say one thing. If you lose track of the number that you're on and when you're counting your short rows, I find that typically the next short row in the next repeat is kind of it starts mid of the previous short row. So that can kind of give you a general idea of where you are. I found that was helpful for me, at least, if I ever lost track of where I was.
That's what I was doing. That's why I ended up using the stitch markers. And when I had to place them, I'm just like, oh, it's about halfway in the middle. So, I remember one thing I was going to say. We were talking about the 2-color rib. Was this the first time for everyone doing a 2-color rib?
Stranded,
yes. The first time I've done it.
Yeah.
So I know it was Regan's first time. Sorry, Regan, I wasn't. But it was just really cool. And then you figured it out what had happened, because I remember that was one of the ones you had to rip back a couple of times.
Yeah, I ripped back 3 or 4 times.
But you did you use that on that new project you just finished?
I did. I did
you used
the whole
same
bottom border. I did the 2-color rib.
Well, do you have any tips to share with anyone who's struggling with it, to learn from your mistakes?
So I knit English style, but Jen taught me recently how to knit continental. And I actually found that was very handy because when I do color work, I will keep one yarn in my left hand and one yarn in my right hand. So I found that continental purling and English style knitting was a good combination of not needing to switch colors or switch hands or things like that. So I found that was handy for me, at least personally.
I feel like that would break my brain.
I do color work all in my right hand with one yarn wrapped around my index finger and the other yarn wrapped around my middle finger is how I normally do stranded color work. So I think for the rib, I had the pearl on my index finger because that's easier to kind of bring between the needles, and then the knit on the middle finger. It's a bit slow, but it worked well.
It's definitely like the most challenging part of the project. And I really hope people who like are thinking about joining the knit along don't get started and then say, no, thank you, and put it away.
Yeah.
You can just do it in one color if it's too frustrating, because it is kind of frustrating.
It's, like, on the one hand, it's always fun to learn a new technique. And if you've never done it, it's only like 6 rows of the stranded rib. So it's like, it's over quickly. It's a good way to like try it for the first time. But on the other hand, you can just not do it too. So either way works.
And you just have to remember to strand it, because I did, I think it's called corrugated ribbing, where you move the yarn to the front and the back, but that's not right. So that was one of my rip hacks. So you hold, because I can see your face, like you hold both strands to the front when you purl, or both to the back when you knit.
So you're moving both.
So it doesn't
back and forth.
Yeah. So it doesn't strand it on the back. It runs the color that you're working with. It runs the strand in front.
Huh.
It's basically double knitting.
Okay.
Is what it is, or is that right? Is it double knitting?
I think so.
Yeah. Where you get like 2 layers and all your floats are in the middle.
Yes, that I was doing.
Yeah, I think that's
That
what
way.
I did my first try, because I just had the knit showing and then the purl was just on the other side and it wasn't coming through the knit on the front side. Stacey was like, you're doing that wrong.
I was just trying, but I was trying to figure out why it was wrong, and I couldn't figure out what you did, so... Because I hadn't run across that before. I was nicer. I did not say you were doing it wrong.
And you know what? Like, if you're doing it like quote unquote wrong, but you like how it looks, then you're doing it right, right? Because it's your project. So you, the knitter, you're in charge of your project. If you start doing the stranded ribbing and you're like, this looks different than the picture, but I like it, then you're good. You're fine. Because maybe you're doing the double knitting style, the corrugated style, and that's just a different technique. And it's not wrong. It's just different.
This definitely lends itself to like experimenting in mods because it's just a big rectangle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't have to worry about, fit or like the gauge being exactly right, or like, because it's just a big rectangle. It'll be fine.
I did do a gauge swatch just because I wanted to see what the colors look like, but I didn't measure it or use that as a symptom, so I have no idea if I'm on gauge or not. So
I don't think anyone's swatched. Did anyone swatch for gauge?
I don't think so.
Definitely did not. I just saw the size needles and I grabbed them from my box and I was like, here we go.
Yeah, I just swatched because I was trying to, I just wanted just to see what the 2 colors I was using look like together, and I loved it, so I was just like, and then I was like, well, I'll put a couple of the little flames in here just to get a little used to it. I think Regan may have taken a picture of it just because it was just, I was just fooling around, but I did not measure if I was getting the proper stitches and rows per inch, so... Because I didn't care that much.
Yeah. And I made a few modifications to mine, so mine wasn't going to be the same gauge anyway, so... Yeah.
And then and a bunch of us are using, not a bunch of us, but several of us are using different weights, as Andi had pointed out. But Elena is using Wonder Fluff, so that's a bulky weight. So it's definitely bigger. So
yes.
It looks lovely.
It's not that much bigger though. We have a blog post up if people are curious showing Elena's Wonder Fluff version, the original pattern sample, and then my DK weight version. And they're like obviously different sizes, but it's not as dramatic as you might think.
Right.
Like Elena's is only maybe another inch wider than the original.
Oh, okay.
Because the
It
original
seems
is
like it's really big.
worsted, but knit at a pretty loose gauge. So if you're knitting bulky at like not so much of a loose gauge, then it's not going to really be that different from the original. Although Wonder Fluff you can knit at a very loose gauge because the fluffiness is going to kind of fill in the gaps and make it nice and airy.
Awesome. Listeners, we hope you will be joining us on our ongoing knit along. Check out our socials. We'll link them in the show notes. But mainly Instagram and Facebook will have like some progress photos. There's some great blog posts by Andi about it. So check out the blog. And if you're having trouble, just, reach out to us either in a comment or whatever, and we'll try to help you out as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in a few weeks to see how you're doing. Maybe a wrap up.
Wrap
up. You got it. See? Cool. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This podcast was originally created by Kelly Petkin.
It is produced and hosted by me, Lee Meredith, and Stacey Winklepluck.
Produced by Andi Satterlund, with additional production and editing by Chase Ryan.
Special thanks to Regan, Jen, and Carlene for joining us today.
We recorded this episode in the Pacific Northwest, where we're working on our Ice Fire knit-along projects.
From everyone here at knitpicks, thank you for joining us.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual participants. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions or views of the Crafts Group, LLC, or Premier Needle Arts.
All the yarn, tools, and patterns mentioned in this episode, along with all the inspiration a knitter could need, could be found on our website at knitpicks.com.
If you'd like to be on our podcast, leave us a voicemail. We'll be checking it regularly and using your calls in later episodes. To leave a voicemail, call 360-334-4847 and record your message. You can also record a voice memo on your phone and email us that audio file at podcast@knitpicks.com.
Like and follow us on your favorite social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube at knitpicks.
Rate and review us wherever you listen to this podcast.
Until next time, happy crafting!